Hello, welcome back to the CashPT Lunch Hour podcast. Today, I'm your host. Well, I've always been your host. My name is LeBauer, and today my special guest is Maggie Bergeron. Did I get that right, Maggie?
You got it right.
Yes, great. And Maggie is a physiotherapist from Canada, from Toronto, and she's a co-founder of Embodia, and she's doing a lot of other stuff with healthcare technology. And so, Maggie, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So, I've met you a couple times, or maybe once. Only once, maybe?
Once in person.
At Accelerate Live in Toronto. I know a little bit about you, but why don't you tell us, what are you doing right now? And what are you guys doing in Embodia? Is that the only thing you're doing? And what's your big goal right now?
Yeah, so like you said, I am a physiotherapist, as we say in Canada. And I've been practicing for 10 years now, which has flown by. I have my own physio practice, which I started 5 years ago because I wanted to spend more time with my patients. And I didn't want to deal with what we call MVAs and WSIB, auto insurance and workers' comp. I wanted to practice the way that I like to practice. And Aaron, we have a common connection. I did a bunch of John Barnes MFR training.
Oh yeah, that's right. You mentioned that. I've forgotten about that.
And that's actually what really pushed me to start my own practice. I just kind of took the leap, registered my business, started small as a sole proprietor, renting space from a community acupuncture clinic. And I still practice about 8 hours a week at the moment. I've gone through some ups and downs with the practice and am in the process of deciding what to do with it because Embodia really takes up a lot of my time and I feel at this point it deserves all of my attention.
Yeah.
So I started Embodia 4.5 years ago, 6 months after I started my own practice. And that wasn't really on purpose. I didn't really know what I was getting into. Yeah. I started Embodia with somebody I met dragon boating, the big boats and like 20 people.
Oh yeah. I heard a story about that. There's a whole women's breast cancer team that does dragon boating. I heard about that. Yeah.
It's really fun. It's a great way to meet people. I met my co-founder that way.
Oh, that's cool. So you started, so you started what, 4 or 5 years ago, you're in practice?
5 years ago, my practice.
5 years ago. Okay. And you've been a PT or physio for 10 years, right? Isn't that what you said? So, and now you've got a clinic where you're seeing a handful of patients a week, 8 patients a week or so. You've got this online clinical education, business education, et cetera, Embodia. And then you're also doing something else. You're on a healthcare IT doing something. What is that?
Yeah, I am the community director of an event called Health TO, or now it's run through the Tech Toronto organization. We host bi-monthly events for healthcare practitioners who are interested in the future of healthcare and technologists, startup founders, anybody in the tech community. We come together to network and to learn from each other and to discuss the future, what's going to happen.
That's awesome. So you got out of physio school 10 years ago and you went and got a job, and what happened? What happened that made you want to start your own business?
I worked in 5 clinics in 5 years.
That's a good number.
And there were great things and not so great things about all of them. I learned a lot from each of the owners and different styles of practices. What I didn't love was the pressure to see more patients with less time.
Right.
And not having full control over the way that I practice, the hours that I practice, and as an independent contractor, so as a contractor in all of those clinics, I felt like I was getting the worst of both worlds, the worst of being an employee and the worst of being a contractor. So I basically just got fed up and decided I can go out there and try this myself. And so I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. And was it as easy as it seemed?
It wasn't easy. No, I wasn't expecting it to be easy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that challenging. I didn't So I didn't go and like start a full clinic. I was renting space from another clinic. I had other supportive practitioners there. We have very similar styles, similar goals in terms of the way that we want to practice. So it's a very supportive community.
Yeah.
And I just had to learn some business skills. I took an online course in business and how to run a practice, and I was off.
Voila, that's awesome. Is it fairly common for physios in Canada to, do like a smaller type of like clinic like what you're doing? Is that something that's common? Because I know a lot of people have like these multidisciplinary practices a little bit more than I feel like we do here in the US. Is it common for people to do what you did, or is it, is it kind of like, oh, what's she doing over there?
I don't think it's very common. I know a few other PTs who have done it this way, and it was kind of like a jumping point, which is the way that I viewed it. It was like a jumping point to which I could decide, do I want to open my own clinic, multidisciplinary, multiple practitioners? It's kind of like a test. So I know a few, but I don't think it's that common.
Yeah. And what came about that that you started Embodia like within like 5 or 6 months? What was the problem you were encountering that was the solution to?
So I had always noticed this in other practices, those cue cards that you have to photocopy, or like you're photocopying some sort of handout 1,000,000 times and giving it to somebody. I always felt really bad giving that to somebody. And I have my own style of exercises. I have my own style of education, just as I think we all do. We're all unique as therapists. We all have unique backgrounds and training and continuing education. And so during dragon boating, I was talking about how we prescribe exercises on these pieces of paper. I was writing up Word documents and taking pictures, or like recording patients on their phones. And it just seemed like a broken system. Like it didn't seem to make that much sense, considering that even at that time, most people had smartphones. Everybody has a computer for the most part, everybody has a computer. And so Ellie, who's actually a chemical engineer who was teaching himself how to code at the time, said, oh, we can like easily build something to help you solve this problem. We'll just build a way that you can upload your own library of exercises as videos and record your patients in session, prescribe them to people, and they can track their progress. So you can actually see, it's basically remote patient monitoring. You can see what they're doing. You can add outcome measures in there, messaging. And so that's what we did. It was really built for my problem and my practice.
Yeah.
And once we kind of started to set out on that journey, I started talking to more therapists. We went to some conference. I talked to people about it, and they're like, yeah, this is definitely a problem. Most therapists have thought that the way that we prescribe exercises is really archaic and quite stupid.
Right.
But as I learned, it's actually quite difficult to build a solution that solves it.
Right. It always seems sometimes the solutions are easy, but actually putting it in play is like rather complicated. What was the most complicated piece of it?
I'd say the most challenging piece of it is getting therapists to move away from a system that they're used to. So most therapists will have a way that they like to prescribe exercises, whether it's these handouts that have been photocopied, or emails, or now particularly recording patients on their own phones. It's very challenging to move away from something that you're used to, because we're all busy in clinical practice and there's lots of patients to see, there's lots of other things to do. So learning a new piece of technology, learning how to do something new, a new process, is difficult. So that's the most challenging part of it still. But we've definitely seen quite a change in trends. And I think people are starting to understand the value of technology, not just in home exercise, but overall the value of technology and what it can bring to our practices and our patients.
So the technology, you can solve the problem with technology. You just got to get the human to buy into it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like the technology piece, as a general rule, the technology piece is the easy part. Still not easy, but I say Ellie would probably say something different. He spends a lot of time coding and building things, but the human behavioral change is the challenging part. And there's it's not like code where it's zeros and ones and like everything is set a certain way. Behavioral change is much more dynamic and complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've noticed something similar myself recently, whether it's with patients or even just helping people fundraise. I'm like, hey, I know I know a solution to your problem, but it's going to take me longer to sell them the solution than it is to actually solve the problem.
Yeah.
Right. But you guys at Embody, you do more than just exercise, right? And exercise prescription, exercise uploads. What else are you guys doing, and how did that come about?
So when we started creating the exercise library, I started to talk to continuing education instructors, people I was taking courses with, and you get a paper manual or whatever it might be, a book, a handout in the course, and often they are teaching exercises. So I approached some of those instructors, the ones that I knew the best, and asked if they'd be interested in recording the exercises that they suggest or teach on their courses. And some of them said yes. And once they started to see like the power and the ability of video over paper-based, they asked if we could also host their online courses.
Oh, wow.
Because a video is a video, which is not actually. Our exercise platform is one kind of software, and what we now do, which we added in almost 3 years ago, is a learning management system. So totally separate. It's custom built in Embodia. We host online courses. We have over 350 online courses. We also host webinars. Wow. That's where it started, was from the ones that we were already.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So you got online courses, you've got like exercise management. Are you guys doing anything else, or is it just pretty much those two kinds of things?
So this year we added something called private academies. And this is a way for large clinics and organizations and hospitals to be able to onboard and train their staff. It's a private branded platform, a unique URL to them, branded with their logo and colors, where their staff can log in. They can view Embody Academy, which is our online library of courses, but then they have their own academy, which hosts all of the training that their staff needs. It can have tracks of, like course 1 for your first day and course 2 for your first week. And these are the things that you need to know about our organization. So we launched that this year. We have 2 large organizations in Canada using it, and a few more that we're going to onboard in early 2020, which is really exciting.
That's awesome.
And then we have rather large plans for 2020, which I can't disclose yet, but we're pretty excited what we're going to bring to the market.
That's great. And you mentioned before, like, we're taking John Barnes MFR classes. Like, it's a very different part of your brain than creating like an online platform, installing a platform. Like, how, because there's left brain, right brain, or just like you're in healing mode and then you're in like tech mode. How do you balance those two things, and how do they kind of work? How do they feed off each other?
I felt like for the first maybe 4 years of this tech journey, I was constantly in chaos, very much torn between the two. I was practicing a lot more as well. So that's something that's changed for me this year, is I've really started to delegate, both in the tech company and in my practice. I've brought on somebody else to take over part of my caseload. And it was challenging to, be thinking about kind of in that mindful present space, but then the tech world is like crazy chaotic. Everything moves so quickly, and how to manage everything. And there's this and this and this. So it was difficult at first, but I feel like actually the John Barnes work, or even being a physio, has really helped ground me in running a tech company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know sometimes if, when right before I stopped treating patients, it was like, I'm treating patients and I got all these other things like I got to do. I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I got all this stuff done. And I'm not actually being present with my patient, even though some days they were still like, oh, that was the most amazing thing ever. Because I'd been doing it for so long, but I didn't feel like I could be in both at the same time and, for much longer. Is there something that you think, like, looking back as you started your clinic or starting Embodia, like, is there something that you would go back and do differently, or that you would change that would like accelerate your growth and move forward?
I feel like one of the things that took me a while to learn, but also something that really drew me to the tech community in Toronto is this open-mindedness and collaboration. I find that in healthcare, and at least from a physio's perspective, we tend to be in a competitive mindset rather than a collaborative mindset. And there's, with good reasoning, with more of us going into private practice, the insurance industry is changing. So there's reasons behind it. But probably what I would have changed is being more of an open book from the beginning. Like there's no secrets.
Right. There's
really no inventions anymore. We're just all innovating on old ideas and making them better. People, if anybody listening does want to get into tech or has an innovative idea and you're scared that somebody's going to steal it or do it faster or better, that's also the way that I felt for quite a while. And I didn't want to talk about the things that I was doing, but it's actually not true. It is so difficult to do something new or interesting or innovative that most people are not going to go and take your idea and do that. So it's probably, if I was going to go back and give myself advice, it would just be like, really be more open and open to the idea of collaboration and learning from others, and sharing, being honest with what you've learned and what you know.
That's awesome. Was that something that hindered you because of like you weren't collaborating with other people to grow, or you weren't bringing people on your team? I mean, how did that affect you?
Yeah, I think even at the beginning, I just didn't really talk about what I was doing. And therefore I only have my brain to go from rather than multiple people's ideas and inputs that always make things, well, typically can make them better and help shape ideas and move things faster. We did get a mentor from the beginning, which was very helpful. But I maybe would have created what I now call my personal board of advisors sooner as well.
That's awesome. What do you do to get like ideas and inspiration? Do they just come to you, or you like you go channel them up or dig them up or something? Is there something that you do on a regular basis to do that when you get stuck?
I love the outdoors.
Yeah.
And this is also something that I've learned over time. Before I started either business, I used to rock climb and hike and go camping and do all these amazing, fun, adventurous things. And then I started 2 businesses unknowingly, and then an event, and just spent all my time working, which I found like really, you just grind away and new ideas never come. So for me, it's taking time away and being in the outdoors, whether it's going camping or even rock climbing, doing those kinds of things, and just like turning off that part of my brain for a bit, and things just naturally come up.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. What, why do you think that like you've been able to create 2 businesses? Like, is there something that happened or did, or that you learned a long time ago that you're able to do this, but other people are struggling to get like one off the ground or even take a step into owning their own business?
I am not risk adverse. In fact, I kind of like risk, and I like doing things that are maybe a little bit on the edge and pushing boundaries. Like, to me, that's just exciting. Like, outside of like my businesses, I said I love camping. I love backcountry camping. I am terrible with navigation. Like, I just have no internal compass. So obviously the right choice is to go on a trip where there are no trails, no map, like you just have a map and compass and you have to find your own way.
Yeah.
I like to do things that are like really gonna push my boundaries and how uncomfortable it feels. So I don't know, I guess getting comfortable with the uncomfortable is maybe something that I've learned to embrace a bit.
Right. What are you doing, like backcountry camping when it's snowing, or ice climbing or some crazy stuff like that?
I've never been ice climbing, but I've gone winter camping. Yeah. Like snowshoe, cross country skiing. Love it all.
Yeah. I went camping one day. I was with my dog, and I was going to go on like a 3-night trip in the Sierras, which is in California. And we got up there and we were, I guess, above the snow line. Like it started snowing at dinner. Woke up the next morning, I couldn't see the trail. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to continue going. I mean, you know, I was like, I could get lost. And the dog knew how to get back down. But it was in, that was like in May. It was, or maybe it was September. I can't remember. It was still cold. I was like, no. I hit my limit of risk.
So that's also the other thing. I've definitely had to learn that. Like a lot of people talk about, you know, even starting a business, taking small risks and like really calculating risk for something that doesn't come naturally to me either, is like, you know, really thinking about what is in that risk and what the best decision is, really taking time to reflect on it. So it's something I have to consciously do.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
For example, in my backcountry example, we had no GPS and no trails, map and compass only. And ended up just on absolutely the wrong cliff with no way to get down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like really should have reflected on that earlier as we were going up the wrong side of the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you say like in business, it's okay. I mean, as long as it's not life threatening, it's okay to, you know, take some risks and try some things out, even if you don't know if they're going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the best things to do is just calculated risk. So knowing what you're going to test and what does success look like. Yeah. Because if you don't know what success looks like, then how do you know if it worked or not? And knowing what is the worst thing that could happen and then going with it. We typically do team votes now too, because we have a team that works with us. So that helps as well, again, with like that collaboration piece and more than one brain thinking about it.
Well, that's cool. What's the worst that could happen?
With Embodia, the worst thing that could happen is that our instructors leave. I love our community of instructors, and I've taken a lot of time and a lot of care in growing that. And I think that is probably the worst thing that could happen is that we do something and our instructors leave. So we never want to jeopardize that. And we really value those relationships.
Yeah. On the other side of that, what's the best that could happen? Like, what is the best possible outcome of all this effort and work?
So currently, I'll speak to current because next year it might change a little bit. Currently, the best possible outcome is that we create the largest and most amazing community of both instructors and therapists who can learn from each other in a digital marketplace. Yeah.
That's awesome. What's the technology like? Why is that so important? Like, why is it so important for you to do that, you know, online? Like, why, where are we going with it? Why do you see this as like the big future? Even though like we all know, like, you know, Amazon and Whole Foods and all these companies are investing in technology. What is it you see that's relevant to physios that really makes this such a powerful like move and time and effort for you?
I think that we have an incredible opportunity as a profession. In general, as an industry, healthcare needs to change from both just like a spending perspective, but also, of course, patient care and outcomes. I think the big things particular to physio and technology that are coming is the idea of using technology meaningfully in clinic to provide better outcomes to patients through things like machine learning and artificial intelligence so that we can spend more time doing what we do really well, using the biopsychosocial approach with patients, really getting that one-on-one time with them, using technology to help us with our clinical reasoning and diagnostics, and being able to better communicate with the rest of the healthcare team. Our healthcare system is so siloed. I've never practiced in the US. I'm actually American, but I've never practiced in the US. But it definitely in Canada, we're so siloed. It's so difficult and so frustrating and so time consuming to do things like get a report or send something over to a doctor or submit a claim to insurance or MVA and workers' comp. All of those things should not be taking up our time, both our time and the administrator's time. this can be handled well by technology. It's just that people have to get along, coming back to the collaboration piece. And we have the technology to do this, but it's a matter of syncing systems, getting those APIs. APIs is how technology talks, so that maybe, or at least what I see in Canada is going to happen, is that we are all going to use different systems. We're going to use different EMRs in private practice versus hospitals. But how do you transfer that information so that it gets transferred, first of all, so that we can all see what's going on with the patient, and being able to communicate with multiple practitioners, even if you're not in the same site, even if you're not in the same organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. What's the biggest opportunity for physical therapists, physios, and even clinic owners in with concerning technology coming up in the next 5 to 10 years that you see?
Well, your community is mostly looking to do cash-based, which I love. I think this is actually a huge opportunity for us, is to break away from insurance companies in Canada as well, and to really stand on our own 2 feet again. This is actually something that we are going to be doing in the new year, so I can't speak too specifically about it, but I think reestablishing ourselves and the value that we bring and how much we should be charging, not dictated by the insurance companies, but dictated by our practice and what we want to charge.
Yeah.
So I think that's one massive opportunity, and potentially a fundamental shift in the way that we provide care and the way that we even think about billing, which I know is a bit vague.
Right.
That is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's cool. And billing's a little different up there in Canada, but it's in general, there's a government insurance and a private insurance, and it's just, I don't think it's as big of a hassle, but I could be wrong, I mean, right? It's about the same. So, and you said you were American, which said you were born here. Did you grow up in Toronto or something like that, or move there after school?
I moved there after.
Yeah.
I was born in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I grew up in Ottawa, which is in Canada's capital. My dad worked for the Canadian federal government, so my parents had moved around a bunch before they had kids, and I just happened to be born in Virginia.
Okay.
And
got it. Dual citizen?
I don't have, no, because then I'd have to pay taxes in the US.
Oh.
So at the moment, no.
Right on. Yeah. So it's still easy enough to get back and forth across the border.
Yeah, although it's surprising how often I get stopped.
Right.
Because my passport says born in Alexandria, Virginia.
Okay. Interesting.
And, the border guards always stop me and ask why I don't have my American passport.
And you're like, but I don't want to pay taxes if I don't live there.
Not a good answer.
Right. Maggie, what do you think, let's see. I mean, in the United States, we're having, in physical therapists here, we're having a tough time this year. Well, excuse me. We've got Medicare is cutting our payments in the next few years. There's some, a couple other rules have changed recently, because, and so home health and skilled nursing physical therapists are kind of losing some jobs, and our cost is going up. Is there anything, and everyone's like, well, they can't earn as much, because salaries are tied to reimbursement. Excuse me. And is there anything like that going on in Canada? Is there any pressure from multiple areas up there?
Yeah, absolutely. So our insurance, so like you said, in Canada, we have the publicly funded system. There are fewer and fewer publicly paid physiotherapists though. And for the most part, the outpatient PT is private, and you're going to be either cash-based or collecting from insurance, which could be private insurance, workers' comp, or motor vehicle accidents, MVAs. And there's been significant changes in the insurance industry, and only more to come, in the way that they provide funding for physiotherapy. And that includes decrease in MVA insurance. So people just get less money when they're in a car accident. It's harder to get the money. insurance is going more towards like lump sums, digital wallets, so people can choose what they want to spend the money on, and not just for registered therapists, but also, think broadly, anything that affects health and wellness. You want a dog walker? You can use your health insurance for that. You want a babysitter? That counts. Yoga therapist? That counts. So,
wow.
Changing times. And
what do you think is so what are people in Canada like? Gosh, sorry. This must be just the cold from my kids that doesn't go away. What are you guys doing? Like, what's the next big move, or what are people not doing that they need to be doing that you see in Canada, or even both in the US? Like, what is that thing that people who, whether they own a business or don't own a business, like, what are physical therapists, what should they be doing, or what are they not doing? What's the opportunity that they're not seeing to make a change? And do you know what I'm talking? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yep. I love your philosophy of increasing prices, and I think we need to do the same in Canada. We are worth more than we charge, and like myself included in my private practice, we need to put up our prices, and we need to be okay with telling people that you can pay out of pocket for it. You pay out of pocket for your oil change in your car. Right. Your auto insurance doesn't cover that. Why is this any different? Right? Like, your health insurance might cover some of it, but if you want a healthy body and functioning body, then seeing a physiotherapist is definitely the right choice. And sometimes it requires paying out of pocket. So I think it's a shift in mindset, which isn't an easy answer, of course. It's patient education, consumer education, and really kind of marketing ourselves better overall as a profession, which brings us to a conversation a bit of our professional association and what they're doing to help with that, and what kind of conversations they're having with the public and with insurance companies and the large payers, the government. So I think there's a role for them to play there, but we have a partnership with the Canadian Physiotherapy Association at Embodia, and it's been quite a interesting experience working with the professional association. Right. And getting to know better, what exactly do they do? Because the biggest question that physios in Canada ask about our association is, what do they do? What are they doing for me? And I agree, that's the way that I used to think as well, until I started working with them and started to better understand the way that they function, what they actually do, the value that they bring to us. But I think along with changing the public's perception of physio and how it's paid for, the association has to evolve along with us.
Right. Do you see is there a parallel between what do they do for me as like a physio to the association, and like patients for my physio? Like, what are they going to do for me? Like, right? Is that personal responsibility, or is it like, I'm waiting for an external something to solve my problem? Right. Is that like the same thing? Are those things similar?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. And I think it's both a personal responsibility on every physiotherapist to advocate on behalf of our profession. And I think part of that advocacy goes to being a part of the association. There's no reason that we shouldn't be a part of our association, but that we should also push our association to be a better voice for us.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. A lot of people here, like, I don't even think APTA has 20% of the PTs. And a lot of people are like, what are they going to do for me? And it's like, it's the same thing I ask my patients are going to say, you might go and pay $20 copay and be like, what are they going to do for me? They're going to fix or me get an injection, a medication is going to fix my back pain. I was like, I got to fix it. Right. We actually have to do some work to fix the problems. Even if someone like you can come around and be like, here's the solution, really, right? It's like, how do we sell people on, participating in fixing the problems? What do you think what's the role of your companies, like your Embodia, in changing the landscape of physio? Like, what do you ultimately want to do besides have like the best place for everyone to be there and learn? But like, is there something behind it that's pushing you to wake up every day to do this?
My ultimate mission now is to help physios change their funding model. The way that they get paid, the way that patients perceive them, and the way that patients pay for physio.
Yeah.
I think we are in an incredible time. Like, I think I haven't lived in another time, but I think this is the best time in history to live. And there's going to be so much change that happens in the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Physios have an opportunity to grow or die. I think it's going to be one or the other. And I want to be there to help us grow as a profession, not just grow, but explode and do far more than what we were doing before, be given far more responsibility, be paid more, be respected, to be actually at the table with the government, with insurance companies during important conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. What, like if someone's listening, like what can they do? Like what's something they can do if they don't have they feel like they don't have a big voice, or they're like, hey, I need to do something. Like what should we expect anyone to do?
At the very least, join the association,
mm-hmm.
Whatever country you're in. Nothing is going to change unless we have a collective voice. And that collective voice currently is the association.
Yeah.
You can't, to me, it's like people who complain about the government who haven't voted. Yeah, you're one vote, but you can't complain if you didn't vote. You didn't contribute. If you want to be a part of the change and you want to do something productive for the profession, you need to join the association.
Yeah.
And then you can advocate, you can be a part of that conversation and help them help us. Second, I think, is just thinking outside of the box, depending on how much somebody wants to get involved. Technology is going to be a part of our profession moving forwards. And there are so many technology companies, and what they need at the table are healthcare practitioners and patients. Every health tech company should have a board that includes at least one healthcare practitioner and one patient. Otherwise, they're going to be building technology that likely isn't going to be useful or is going to work against us as a profession.
Oh.
You think of many examples of that. Probably the biggest right now in the news is something called Kaya Health. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't.
Kaya Health is an app for chronic pain. You don't need to see a therapist. You can download it and it will guide you through all the steps that you need to take care of your persistent pain. They are raising something like $500 million.
Wow.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. And what does that say?
Holy cow.
It says that therapists aren't needed.
Right.
So I think this is going to happen, whether it is a therapist-led innovation or a therapist cutting innovation. Get rid of the therapist and go straight to the consumers. That's their model. Yeah. And it's scary. I absolutely don't think that people will receive the best care possible. However, that's not what the money is saying, obviously, what the investors are saying, and they're coming at it hard. They've been coming for a couple of years. They've raised some money, and now they're going big.
Yeah.
And persistent pain is a huge problem.
Yeah.
People have persistent pain.
It is. And so if someone's listening and they're, that one person out there who's like, I have this great idea, to help solve that problem. What's the number one piece of advice? Like if for another physio or healthcare practitioner wants to start or grow their tech company, what would you say?
Get surrounded by people who've done it before, whether it's in, an incubator, co-working space, get a mentor, get an advisor. You're welcome to speak with me. Always happy to talk about these types of things. But speak to people who've been there before. Talk about your idea. Don't make the same mistake that I did, because it'll take you much longer to get it to market. Surround yourself with people who can help you and give you good advice and connections. And go for it.
Yeah.
What's the worst that's going to happen?
Right. We might lose a few people here and there, but we're still stand. That's so awesome. So Maggie, I just have a few more questions for you. You've started two businesses, right? You got a tech business and you got a person-to-person kind of business. What's the big difference aside from, the service you're providing, like treating a patient or selling an app or a subscription or something, or a course? Is there a difference between your two businesses, or isn't there? And what is it?
There are a lot of differences. Yeah, they're very different businesses, which I realized very early on. Probably one of the biggest things that I noticed day to day is that when you're running a practice, you see people in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that immediate response. You get that immediate feedback. Somebody's like, oh yeah, I feel much better, or feel no different, or whatever it might be. I really like what you did there. And so you get that feedback, and you can look at somebody. In a tech business, you have no idea. Right? You don't see people. You can't tell what they're thinking. There's ways of monitoring like user engagement and user experience, and those kinds of metrics, but it's not the same as looking at somebody and having a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out how to kind of navigate that. And then also with tech companies, I get lots of wonderful emails from our customers and our users, which I always really appreciate. But then I also get some pretty nasty ones.
Yeah.
And the first time I actually presented Embodia at a conference, basically tomatoes were thrown at me. People were not happy with this idea of, it was home exercise at the time, and like video based, which is, it's not like that mind blowing.
Right.
So feel like with, at least in health tech and kind of pushing the boundary and making change, there's more skepticism. Mm-hmm. Versus in a physio practice, people generally know what they're going to come in and get.
Right. You were like, it's not working, and they blame you, and it's really like they had caps lock on, or Yep. It's like, I can't get into my site, F you, and you're like, but caps lock was on, and they're like, and they don't say anything. They don't say I'm sorry because they're anonymous.
Yep, exactly. It's very easy to just write an email and be really rude.
Yeah, so you got to develop a little bit of a thick skin, or have someone else read the emails.
Yeah, or just have somebody else to talk to, or have tech friends, because then they get the space. It's just like having physio friends. You need people that are in your industry because they get it, they understand, and you have people to lean on.
That's awesome. Well, Maggie, if someone has a question for you, or they want to reach out to you or find you on social media, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. My handle is Maggie B PT. Mm-hmm. And they're welcome to email me as well. My email is mbergeron, which is my last name, at embodiaapp.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. For those on LinkedIn, I'm also there. So you can basically reach out any which way you prefer.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Is there anything that is there a question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Huh. Not that I can think of. Those are all really, really great questions, and make me excited for the future of our profession and moving forward together, and the power of technology. We get to speak this way and have an amazing interview and conversation. That's
really cool. Well, yeah, thank you very much. And, it was great meeting you at Accelerate Live. And, just for the listeners out there, I've got one of my courses on Maggie's platform. It's the PT Clinic Breakthrough. So be sure to check it out. And then next time I'm up in the Great White North up in Canada. Toronto is so big. It's like huge, but let's hang out, because I think with the Canadians, you guys are doing some really great stuff up there. I've had a handful of Canadians on the show, and you guys are really crushing it. So I think we can learn a lot from you guys and hopefully vice versa. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
That was really awesome. Well, this is the CashPT lunch hour, and my name is Aaron LeBauer, if you don't know that yet, and this is Maggie Bergeron, and see you on the next time. Don't be afraid. I'm going to say this. Don't be afraid to take a risk, because the worst that can happen is you might fall down, and we'll be there to pick you up. Have a good one.